All right, welcome into another edition of Carps Corner here. Got a lot of stuff for you today. We've got some words for you about Gene Smith, the NIL, his thoughts on balancing uh, collectives and donating to that versus the athletic department. Ohio State's about a 6.5-point underdog. How that looks, who Ohio State needs to stop as we kind of start digging in this game and how they'll ultimately be able to do that. Against the Georgia Bulldogs, especially on the offensive side. And that offense that's been pretty stinking good, even though it's maybe not littered with a high-flying quarterback, even though Stetson Bennett did get invited to New York for the Heisman ceremony. He didn't have the high-flying receivers like Georgia typically has. But, it does have some elite tight ends in Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington. Both those guys are talented players, so we'll get into a little bit of that. Then we'll also take a listen to some sound from CJ Stroud, Kevin Wilson, who last week was announced as Tulsa's head coach. So he spoke on that a little bit. Luke Wypler, Cade Stover on with the departure of Kevin Wilson. Ultimately, that leads to the promotion of Keenan Bailey to become his tight ends coach. So his thought on that. But I wanted to start off with this. With CJ Stroud and everything that he's got going for him. And, everybody's leaning into him after the Michigan game. The Heisman was all about kind of his, lack of coming up in big moments. But, and everyone wants to ask him these questions about legacy and about this and that. And the best news, we'll get into that in a second, but I want to listen to this first about his thoughts of going and playing Georgia and how you ultimately have to go and play.
If you want to win, that's what you got to do. You can't go in there timid or second-guessing yourself, and you got to really just let it loose, let it hang, and go out. So, that's kind of how we've been practicing lately. These last couple of days have been really competitive and a lot more good on good. So it's kind of just getting us ready for that moment and those plays to be made.
Can't be timid. There's no part of them that you can be timid going out there and not executing on a high level. That's critically important that you're able to go out there and get done what you need to do ultimately. And that's when you start talking about CJ and start talking about legacy and all these other pieces of that. The best part about CJ is his legacy isn't written. Legacy is for when you're done. It's how you're remembered. But when you're still in the moment, like there's still a lot of chapter left to be written. And I always say this, you can have a great movie be ruined with a terrible ending, and you can have an average movie turn phenomenal with a great ending. And that's what CJ ultimately has, is an opportunity now to author an ending that's different than what he originally thought it was going to be. And so that's a big deal for him to be able to do that and to be able to come out there and put together, a tough, rugged game, something that maybe people didn't realize or think that he can do. You can go answer some questions. And the greatest compliment you can get as a quarterback is you're played well in big games. You're a winner. You'll win big games. And all the yards and all the stats, all those things be damned. Can you ultimately go win big games? And CJ's going to have the opportunity to do that. And so you don't want to be timid. You want to be aggressive. You want to get in there and get after it and see ultimately what you're going to be able to do. Now I want to listen to Kevin Wilson on why he chose to go to Tulsa. Why leave? Why now? Why Tulsa?
One, I knew the area and loved the area. Two, I know historically there's been success here. Three, quite honestly, I just felt my work at IU, where we built our program, and our work at Northwestern, where we built the program, and 9 years at Miami, Ohio, kind of fit this environment. And a chance to be a head coach is few and far. You're very fortunate, very blessed, and I thought if that's the opportunity was given, that's what the good Lord wanted us to do. It would. I really felt I had one great swing.
So it feels like his past is limited to this point. You look at his time at Miami, Ohio, then going to Northwestern, then going to Oklahoma, and then being the head coach in Indiana before coming here. Like he feels like it's home. It's a great opportunity. And Kevin's in his 60s. He's a good football coach, and I'm glad they realized that. I'm glad they understood that. I'm glad they hired him. As much as I loved having him be at Ohio State because of how good I know he is, he needed this opportunity. He frankly deserves this opportunity. And so this will be great for Tulsa. But Kevin Wilson isn't bailing on the Buckeyes. And not that you would expected him to, but this is exactly what you want your coach to say, even though they've taken another job about what they've got to get finished here.
I'll be working through hopefully an opportunity to play two games and two great opportunities. Again, I'm standing here because of the success of our team, and I think it's my obligation to finish up with that team and give that team a chance to chase the national championship.
He's got an obligation to close, an obligation to his team. It's not just for one game. It could be for two. And he hopes it is, because Kevin Wilson, as much success as he's had as a head coach, I don't believe he's ever won a national championship. And that will go worlds for recruiting for him. If when you go there, you're coming fresh off of being on the biggest stage for the last two games this season, ultimately winning a national championship. And honestly, it's something that you check the box, whether you're the head coach, you're a player, you're a starter, you're not. If you get to be part of a championship team, that means something so much. And so I was so excited for Kevin to get that job. And then even more excited when I found out that he was going to be staying here and finishing out, because that's exactly what you would ultimately expect him to do. Now we'll talk a little bit to a guy you probably don't hear a whole lot from most of the season, Luke Wypler, the center for Ohio State. I believe he's third team All Big Ten. On a little technique, how they operate, how they do things at Ohio State.
Yeah, I think for us as offensive line, we approach it as if we do what we're supposed to do and use our technique, that nobody can really beat us. I think we've shown that this year, where when we do the things the right way and the way they should be done and we're all on the same page, it's hard to stop our offense. And for us, that's kind of one of the things that we take pride in, is how can you do your job more consistently, especially as this year has gone on, the weeks start growing and growing.
Confidence is important. And you hear that right there. When we do things the right way, we're really good. And this is the thing I tell people. Everyone's worried about this Georgia game. Listen, it's like if Ohio State doesn't play well, yeah, they're not going to win. If they play well, they have a great chance to win this game. And it's important for the players to understand that and to know that, because you're taking on a team right now that people view as a behemoth, defending national champs, number one overall seed. But remember, back and forth, there was people during the season that said, is Ohio State better than Georgia? And there were people that thought that was the case. And so Luke Wypler saying, like, yeah, we got technique. We do things right. We do well. We're good. We move the ball on people. And that's important, because then this next question is obviously about the beast and the behemoth in the middle for Georgia. His thoughts on Jalen Carter.
Yeah, he's pretty good, I think. I don't know, that's what people are telling me. So yeah, I mean, they got a good team over there, and I think we're all really excited to be able to play them. So that's gonna be a great matchup for us.
Yeah, I mean, he's good. They've got a good team. We think we got a good team, but going to pay respects. He's one of the most talented guys in the middle, going to be a top draft pick, and going to be elite. He's an elite player and going to go do things in the NFL, but he's the guy they've got to handle in the middle. And it's going to come down to Luke and the guards. And can they him up and not let Jalen Carter just ultimately wreak havoc? And then finally, we'll go to one of the captains. And a guy who probably didn't have his greatest game of the season against Michigan, but a very good player and has, I think, exceeded expectations this year, in Cade Stover, and about his thoughts on what Ohio State ultimately is and what their story could ultimately be.
I kind of heard something from the USC team that kind of resonated with me. That I've kind of been trying to push a little bit, and it's like nobody writes a book without adversity in it. So nobody's gonna read a book that just everything goes good, everything goes fine. Everybody wants to read a book that you come back from something that could have ended you. You know what I mean? And to have the opportunity to keep playing, I mean, we're super excited.
I mean, it's a great line. Nobody wants to read a book where there's no adversity. You don't want to watch a movie where there's no adversity and all that stuff. Like, you want to have everything be lined up. And then you watch these movies, you watch these shows, you watch anything, Miracle, all of them, Rocky, Pickett. Like, there's an inflection point where something bad happens. And that's how you handle it, is how it ultimately defines you. In most movies, we love it because you handle it. It stinks. You grind through a little bit, and then you're ultimately able to rise up out of that and be able to have success. Well, that's what Ohio State had happen to them. Struggled a little bit down the stretch, got punched in the mouth, lost their final game of the regular season, but they were given new life. They were given an opportunity. And so that adversity is going to sculpt you, is going to mold you. And that's why they have the opportunity right now. As you hear Ryan say this all the time, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. They have the opportunity to be able to change it and change the ending. And the adversity gave them that. And that's why it could be a great chance. You look at the 2014 team. What's great was the fact that they had that opportunity. And you know what? They had the adversity early on, adversity late, down to their third quarterback, and they ultimately get it done. And that makes the difference. And now we'll have last piece. It'll be Cade Stover on his newly minted tight end coach, Keenan Bailey.
He's a player's guy. You call Keenan 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, whenever you want, he's going to answer, and he's going to do whatever he needs to do to help you. Whether you want to get extra work in one night, whether your car's out of gas, anything like that, Keenan's there. He's a player's dude. And he's the type of guy you can put your neck on the line for because you know he's going to do the same.
And that's big. You know, you want a guy who believes in their coach. And Keenan Bailey's on the opposite end of the spectrum as far as coaching career and life cycle of Kevin Wilson. Kevin Wilson's been doing a long time, coaching 40 plus years. You look at Keenan Bailey, it's his first full position coach job. He's been grinding away at Ohio State, very well respected by the players. They love his mentality. They love how hard he works. And he's a guy that has a great relationship with guys. So you think of him kind of as a player's coach, but he works for you and he works hard and he's going to hold you to task and hold you accountable. And that's what you want if you're a guy like Cade Stover, which is absolutely tremendous. So, covered a lot of ground there, a lot of different things, a lot of different topics, a lot of different people talking. So some good stuff there with all of that. All right. So we got a couple other things going on this week that are fairly big. We've got the early signing period opening up. We're already in the midst of the transfer portal. It looks like Ohio State, talking to some guys who follow recruiting really closely, it looks like they're probably going to sign hopefully around 20 guys is the goal. Maybe they bring in a portal guy or two. They've had some meetings or visits with those guys as well. So that's an opportunity to potentially get some guys there. But 20-ish high school guys. But what the trepidation now is always, what happens down south and how everything can break. Are they going to be able to close guys out, especially in this new era of name, image, and likeness? And it used to be, under the table payments. So now it's all out in the open. And hey, what are you getting from here? Well, can we match it? Can we beat it? All right, come over to our school. And so it's real tough to get a firm grip on where you're at. And you really have to have great relationships with your players to understand, if they're coming to your school for the right reasons and that they're being honest with you about their intentions and everything that they've been offered and how it all looks and shakes out for them. So it's a big deal of trying to figure that out and understand everything. So I don't know. We'll have to see come Wednesday, Thursday, how that thing shakes out and what it does. Ohio State 6.5-point underdog in the game. I'm feeling all right about that. I feel pretty good. That line's been pretty consistent. Some people thought it should be way higher, 10 points. That's what I thought it might come in at. But I think there's a lot more public confidence on Ohio State than what people would believe. Vegas wasn't built on losers, and it was built because they try to get even money on both sides. So that must mean that they feel like about half of the people out there believe that Ohio State has a firm chance of winning this game, or at least being close within a touchdown. And if you're within a touchdown, that's all you can really ask. The two guys offensively that you really have to be careful and look out for in the passing game. Yeah, they've got McConkey on the outside, but it's their two tight ends. Number 19 and the big 00, Brock Bowers, who's a sophomore, really, really talented player. And then Darnell Washington, 00, who's like 6'8", like 275 pounds, like the mountain running around out there. He's a giant man. I believe was injured most of last season. So they're going to focus on getting those guys the ball. And what you're going to see, a lot of over routes, deep crossing routes by Bowers. They'll work Washington down the field a little bit too, but they love Bowers on those deep crossing routes. And that's a big piece of their offense. And so how do you stop that? It's going to come down to the linebackers inside, Steele and Tommy doing their job, but also the safeties. And whether it's Rock and Lathan, whether it's Sonny Styles, Joshua Proctor, like all of those guys are probably going to be in at some point in time in the game. And I think they work Sonny Styles in a lot. I mean, with his physical gifts, he's tall. He's one of the few guys that can probably go body to body with Darnell Washington. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he can run, he has the size. Now, granted, he should be a high school senior, but whatever. I mean, he's the best guy physically you probably have to ultimately match up with him when you start talking about getting high points and different things like that, throwing the football. So that's incredibly imperative that they'll have to do that. So that's one kind of matchup that I want to focus on and look at. Those deep over routes, and they'll move Bowers around, slide him out of the backfield on motions and do different stuff like that. The more I watch, the more you kind of get a feel for everything that they're trying to do. But I feel like Sonny Styles is uniquely equipped to be able to handle it. You're going to want to get a body on them. You want to bang those guys, and you're going to want to pack the middle of the field. This is a situation where you don't feel like you're probably get beat up very much on the outside. They'll run probably some too deep. Like a little bit of single high safety to be able to have somebody right there to be able to match up, though, with those tight ends running around the middle of the field and not having it open and giving them the ability to throw it in. And then the last thing we're going to close with and talk about is NIL. And it's something, NIL is something that I know makes a lot of people uncomfortable. A lot of people don't like it. I'm not. I like it as it was originally intended. Get some cash to guys who work hard. They can represent companies. They can help monetize themselves. Because Ohio State, they bring in so much cash, you can't pay players. You can't get it to them. So you spend money on all these other things. Well, now the reality is you can get it to players, and it's being used as recruiting inducements. But that's what it is. Nobody is monitoring, governing this, enforcing any of it. So there's nothing really there that you can ultimately do. And it's the Wild West, and everybody says it. Wild West, Wild West, Wild West. And that's trying to figure out how to stop it. I don't know. I don't have a good solution on how to stop this darn thing and what it ultimately is going to look like. But I know this, you need to get dollars to there. And Gene Smith came out, and he hasn't really been an advocate for NIL, probably the way that he needs to be. You want your head football coach coaching football and monitoring that and doing the recruiting. The athletic director, your job is to raise funds. And listen, the reality is now the athletic department, it's a single income situation. Football pays for everything else. It's a single income household. Football pays for just about everything else. The TV deals, all that stuff is driven by the revenue from football. And so you need to have a good football team to make sure that continues. And you know what? Now it's the time, some of the big boosters and donors diverting funds from maybe donating consistently to the athletic department to getting that money to players and collectives for the NIL. We've talked about crowdsourcing it, guys going on subscription arrangements and agreements, donating $5-10 a month for, the casual fan, the average fan out there. But the boosters getting involved in, hey, no more going to this or that or these different things. In the athletic department, you're getting $90 million in TV revenue. Some of those dollars now need to go to the collective pot where you're getting 10, 12, 13, $15 million a year that is going to be utilized for player procurement, bringing in players, keeping players, making sure that everybody is in a good spot relative to where people are at in the rest of the country. Because people can hate it all they like. Your team will eventually drift away to being average if you cannot get great players. And this is what everybody's doing now. It's like saying, hey, come play for me. You can just be a walk-on, but you're going to go get a scholarship somewhere else. Well, you should want to go there. It's Ohio State. Well, yeah. But if you're getting an opportunity to go play at a Michigan or at a Bama or at a Texas or USC or another blue blood, they're going to offer you a scholarship and they're offering you a walk-on. At some point, man, depending on your financial situation, it's not financially prudent not to do that and not to take advantage of that. And so that's kind of where we are with that right now. And it's frustrating to see. I get it. I understand Gene's job, but we got the biggest compliance department in the country at Ohio State. There's no need for that anymore because the level of compliance isn't there. It doesn't have to happen. There are ways and the dollars can be saved within the athletic department, and that money needs to be diverted to NIL. And that's just the reality of it. Yeah, there'll be ramifications. I get that. Have some of the individual coaches for other sports, they need to work on raising money and doing those things that a lot of them do and do it really well. But my goodness, you're trying to figure some things out. And I know it's not an easy situation, but yeah, you've got to figure out a better way because they've got to start getting those dollars to the players and not just the athletic department. Well, that concludes today's show. So thank you for tuning in. A lot going on. We'll get a couple more out here the rest of this week. Take some time off for Christmas. Ramp it back up next week as we will be heading down. I'll be down in Georgia for Media Day, so I'll have some great stuff from some interviews and talking to some of those guys there. And I'll give you a little, talk a little bit about senior tackle and what that means too as the Buckeyes wrap that up this weekend. We'll do that all in the next show though. With everything there. So thank you. Continue to subscribe, love your comments. Don't agree with them all, but I always love them. So please continue to comment. I like to read through them and you'll always understand kind of what people are taking away from this. So thank you for that. Share with friends and we'll talk soon. Merry Christmas.